Sociology, why society works the way it does. Have you ever noticed how people act differently in groups than they do when they're alone? Or wondered why certain patterns, poverty, crime, inequality, seem to repeat themselves across generations, even when individuals work tirelessly to break free from them? These questions point to something fascinating and often invisible: the social forces that shape our lives. Much of human behavior isn't just about personal choices or individual willpower. It's influenced by deeper currents, patterns we rarely notice, structures we inherit, and expectations we absorb without realizing it. This is where sociology comes in. Sociology gives us a way of seeing what's normally invisible in everyday life. It's a lens for understanding the hidden architecture of society, the unwritten rules that guide us, and the systems that shape who we become. Let's start with the word itself. Sociology has an interesting origin that tells us something about the field's ambitions. The term was coined in the 1830s by a French philosopher named Auguste Comte. He combined two ancient languages to create something new: socio from the Latin word socius, meaning companion or associate, and logi from the Greek logos, meaning study or knowledge. So sociology, quite literally, means the study of companionship, the study of how we live together, how we relate to one another, and how our connections form the fabric of society. Comte imagined sociology as a new kind of science, one that would use systematic observation and reason to understand human communities the way natural sciences understood the physical world. It was an ambitious vision to bring clarity and insight to the complex, messy reality of social life. So what exactly is sociology? At its core, sociology is the study of human societies, social life, and the patterns of relationships between people. It examines how groups, institutions, and cultures shape the way we think, act, and interact. It's a field that looks outward and inward at the same time, paying attention to both the grand systems that organize our world and the small, intimate moments that make up our daily lives. Sociologists study an enormous range of topics. They explore families and friendships, but also inequality and globalization. They examine education and work, but also crime, identity, and social movements. The scope is vast, but the common thread is this: sociology connects personal experiences to larger social patterns. It shows us that our individual lives are shaped by forces far beyond ourselves. This brings us to one of the most important ideas in sociology: the sociological perspective. This is a shift in how we see the world, a move from thinking about me to thinking about we. The sociological perspective asks us to look beyond individual blame and individual achievement. Instead, it encourages us to consider history, culture, and power. It reminds us that personal problems are often shaped by social structures. Here's a simple example. Imagine someone loses their job. It's easy to assume this is about motivation or skill. But sociology asks deeper questions. What kind of education system did they grow up in? What economic cycles are shaping the job market? Are they facing discrimination based on race, gender, or age? Personal effort matters, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Our lives unfold within much larger social stories. This shift can be uncomfortable at first. It means recognizing that we're not entirely in control of our destinies, but it's also liberating. It helps us see that many struggles we face aren't personal failures. They're shared challenges rooted in the way society is organized. To understand sociology more deeply, we need to explore the core building blocks of social life, the concepts that help us make sense of the invisible forces around us. Let's begin with culture. Culture is the shared world we live in. It includes language, symbols, beliefs, customs, and practices. Culture shapes how we communicate, what we celebrate, how we eat and dress, and even how we understand reality itself. When you greet someone with a handshake or a bow, when you celebrate a holiday, when you choose what to wear in the morning, you're navigating culture. It feels natural, almost automatic, but it's deeply learned. Within culture, we find norms and values. Norms are the shared expectations for behavior. They're the unwritten rules of social life, like standing in line, making eye contact during conversation, or saying thank you. Values, on the other hand, are beliefs about what matters. They might include freedom, success, equality, family, or tradition. Norms tell us how to act. Values tell us what to care about. And both feel so natural that we often don't question them until someone breaks them. Then there's status and roles. A status is a social position: student, parent, employee, citizen. And attached to each status are roles: the expectations, responsibilities, and behaviors that come with that position. We all occupy multiple statuses at once, and sometimes the roles attached to them pull us in different directions. A parent might feel torn between work obligations and family time. A student might struggle to balance academic pressure with personal well-being. Sociologists call this role conflict or role strain, and it's one of those quiet tensions that many people experience but rarely name. All of this brings us to socialization, the lifelong process of learning culture. Socialization is how we become who we are. From the moment we're born, we're being taught how to be human. Family teaches us language and love. Schools teach us discipline and knowledge. Peers teach us belonging and identity. Media shapes our desires and fears. Work teaches us responsibility and hierarchy. Through socialization, society quietly reproduces itself, passing down values, norms, and expectations from one generation to the next. And finally, there's deviance and social control. Every society defines rules, and every society reacts when those rules are broken. Deviance isn't just about crime or harmful behavior. It's about difference. It's about stepping outside the expected, challenging the norm, refusing to conform. Societies use laws, rewards, punishments, and social pressure to encourage conformity. But deviance also drives change. Some of history's greatest movements, civil rights, women's suffrage, LGBTQ+ rights, began as acts of deviance. Now let's step back in time and explore why sociology emerged when it did. Sociology as a formal discipline was born in the 19th century during a period of massive social upheaval. The world was transforming at a dizzying pace. Industrialization moved people from farms to factories. Urbanization packed millions into growing cities. Revolutions shook governments and traditions. Scientific thinking challenged old religious certainties. Daily life itself was unrecognizable compared to what had come before. In the midst of all this change, people began asking urgent questions. How does society hold together? Why does inequality persist even as wealth grows? What happens when traditions collapse and nothing replaces them? These weren't abstract philosophical questions. They were survival questions. People needed frameworks to make sense of chaos. This historical tension gave sociology its urgency. Early sociologists weren't just intellectuals sitting in ivory towers. They were responding to real crises: poverty, labor exploitation, alienation, enemy. They were trying to understand a world in rapid transformation, and in doing so, they created tools we still use today. This brings us to the major thinkers and perspectives that shaped sociology. Rather than diving into biographies, let's think of these as different lenses, ways of looking at the same social reality and seeing different things. First, there's structural functionalism. This perspective sees society as a system of interdependent parts. Just like a body has organs that work together to keep it alive, society has institutions: family, education, religion, government, economy, that work together to maintain stability. Each part serves a function. Schools educate and socialize. Families provide care and reproduce the population. Laws maintain order. From this view, society is like a living organism, constantly working to stay balanced. Then there's conflict theory. This perspective sees society as shaped by inequality and power struggles. Rather than harmony, conflict theorists focus on domination. They ask, who benefits from the way things are? Who gets exploited? Conflict theory pays close attention to class, race, gender, and other forms of social division. It sees history not as smooth progress, but as a constant struggle between those who have power and those who are trying to gain it. Finally, there's symbolic interactionism. This perspective zooms in on everyday interactions. It's less concerned with grand systems and more focused on how people create meaning together. Symbolic interactionists study conversations, gestures, symbols, and language. They're interested in how we present ourselves, how we interpret others, and how our sense of self is shaped through interaction. From this view, society isn't just a structure. It's something we actively create moment by moment in the small exchanges of daily life. To see how these perspectives differ, imagine applying all three to a single issue, like education. A functionalist might say schools serve society by teaching skills and socializing students. A conflict theorist might say schools reproduce inequality by sorting students into winners and losers. A symbolic interactionist might study how classroom interactions shape students' self-concepts and identities. Same topic, three completely different insights. So what do sociologists study today? The field has expanded enormously, but some core areas remain central. Inequality and life chances. Why do some people thrive while others struggle? How do race, class, gender, and geography shape opportunity? Crime and deviance. What makes something a crime? Why do certain communities face more policing? Education systems. How do schools shape futures? Who gets left behind? Family and intimate life. How are relationships changing? What does family mean in different cultures? Gender, race, and identity. How are identities formed, challenged, and defended? Social movements and protest. How do people organize for change? What makes movements succeed or fail? Globalization and change. How are societies connected? What happens when cultures collide? These aren't just academic topics. They're the urgent questions of our time. Of course, sociology isn't just about asking questions. It's also about answering them. So how do sociologists know what they know? They use a variety of research methods. Surveys help identify broad patterns across large populations. Interviews dive deep into individual experiences and perspectives. Observation allows researchers to witness social life as it unfolds. Existing data, census records, crime statistics, historical documents offer insights into trends and changes. And occasionally, experiments test specific hypotheses in controlled settings. What's important is that sociology values both statistics and stories. It looks for patterns, not just anecdotes. It challenges common sense with evidence. It asks, is this really true, or does it just feel true? And it's willing to follow the data, even when it leads to uncomfortable conclusions. So why does all this matter? Why should we care about sociology? Because sociology helps explain social problems by linking personal struggles to larger systems. It shows us that unemployment, addiction, homelessness, and inequality aren't just individual failures. They're social issues with social solutions. It informs policy, guiding decisions about education, healthcare, criminal justice, and welfare. It improves institutions by revealing how power operates, how discrimination persists, and how change becomes possible. But beyond practical applications, sociology does something even more profound. It encourages critical thinking. It gives people language to question why things are the way they are. It challenges us to imagine alternatives. It reminds us that society is not natural or inevitable. It's made by people, and it can be changed by people. Sociology doesn't just study society. It teaches us how to see it. It makes visible the invisible forces that shape our lives. And in doing so, it empowers us, not with simple answers, but with better questions, deeper understanding, and a clearer vision of the world we live in together.